Is there an absolute right to a jury trial? Some auditors claim they were denied a jury trial. It was stated that in Nevada, if the possible sentence is 6 months or less, then you cannot demand a jury trial. Another claims he was denied a jury trial for federal trespassing. There are instances where you are not, the government doesn't have to give you a jury trial. The Sixth Amendment, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial and a public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, etc. But as we have learned, the words of the Constitution don't always mean what you think they mean at first blush. This was interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court. Obviously, the Sixth Amendment applies to the federal government. The 14th Amendment, however, applied it to the states. So, in Duncan v. Louisiana, Duncan was accused of battery, and there was a maximum punishment, a maximum punishment of 2 years in prison. He was not, however, convicted of 2 years in prison. He was convicted for 60 days, and he appealed because he was not granted a jury trial. And the court, in this case, had to figure out, because what they'd done in the past is they've differentiated between serious offenses, basically felonies, and petty offenses. And in the federal system, they had already determined that a petty offense was anything at the time that this was written was 6 months in jail and a $500 fine. The fine has gone up quite a bit since then. I think the fine for up to 6 months in jail is like $5,000 or $10,000. It's pretty substantial nowadays, but I guess money isn't as valuable now as it was in 1968. So what the court held was that states do have to grant a jury in any trial where the potential fine is more than 60 days in jail, or I'm sorry, more than 6 months in jail. And they held that 6 months in jail because that was kind of the federal standard, and they had already determined that. Now, a state can, that's the floor, a state can set the ceiling. A state can say, well, we think that our citizens deserve a jury trial if they're facing a potential fine of 3 months in jail, or 60 days in jail, or 30 days in jail. They could set the ceiling wherever they want. They could say everybody gets a jury trial no matter what. Now, that would be terribly, terribly expensive, and there is a cost-benefit analysis that's involved in that. And you may reasonably differ with it, but I haven't seen a whole lot of states that set the ceiling any higher than the Constitution set the floor. So, Duncan v. Louisiana is the seminal case. There have been tweaks on it, but nothing really important. It's still 60 or 6 months in jail. Guarantees you a jury trial. Anything below that, you're not necessarily guaranteed a jury trial unless your state differs, or if there's some other kind of punishment associated with it that isn't necessarily imprisonment, but maybe something different. Then that, whatever that extra thing may push it over. Trespassing, I didn't know there was a federal trespassing statute. I know there are actually federal trespassing statutes, like there's a federal trespassing statute for military bases, but it's specific to military bases. There's federal trespassing statutes for Indian territories. I think there's 4 total, and I don't remember the other 2. But there's no general federal trespassing statute, so typically federal enclaves will use whatever state trespassing statute. They can actually bring charges. They can federalize a state crime for that jurisdiction, for that enclave. But I'm going to assume that if they were denied a jury trial, then it would have been because they were facing a potential incarceration of 6 months or less. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for watching. And by the way, reasonable minds can reasonably differ on when you should be granted a jury trial. So I'm not necessarily advocating either way on this. This is just the law. So take it for what you will. Thanks. Have a good day.